Yeah. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. Become sober-minded as you ought, and stop sinning, for some have no knowledge of God. I speak this to your shame. Speak this to your shame. I don't understand that last half. Speak this to your shame. That is not the subject I was speaking on. Are you looking that up? Shame? Cool. Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. Some versions say good character. Man, God has been so gracious with me in my whole life. Because I remember actually having friends that I wanted to be friends with that did not have great characters. And I just never got to be friends with them. Like, the Lord just didn't even, like, he protected me and kept me from going through the misery of getting sucked into a sinful lifestyle with bad character. God has been so gracious to me. Like, I have gotten to live a life of freedom and not.
I was looking at the wrong one. That's why it didn't make any sense.
Oh, did you go Hebrew instead of Greek?
I went to the Old Testament instead of the New Testament. It meant this.
What?
The Old Testament, that number means this.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that is confusing.
Well, I appreciate the second verse of 34. Become sober-minded as you ought, and stop sinning. It's funny because as I was praying, I went right into living a righteous life. When we are not setting ourselves up with miserable people, we naturally long for what is right. I don't know if that's necessarily accurate, but those are your options. You either hang out with, I don't want to insult people, but you hang out with losers, and that's, you just absorb their traits. Or you can hang out with good people that encourage you to be better, and in doing so, you become more righteous.
Oh, what that second verse means?
Yes.
Mine says, awake to righteousness and do not sin. This is 1 Corinthians 15:34. For some do not have the knowledge of God. I speak this to your shame. He's saying that they should be ashamed that there are some among them that are not living righteously. He's saying that there are some of you that do not have the knowledge of God.
Okay.
That
sometimes his thought processes.
evil company corrupts good character.
Yes.
So they've been hanging out with evil people. They need to awaken to the righteousness that God has called them to.
They should be ashamed of their sinful actions.
Yes, they should be ashamed that there are people among them that they're hanging out with that are not awakened to the knowledge of God.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Well, I have an Old Testament story I want to get to, but I wanted to dive into my life a little bit on the subject. I was a younger brother of a big family, and I had a lot of people to look up to, both good and bad advice, and there were bits of information I could get from every sibling. It's like, oh, that one has this strong trait or this weak trait. I'll mimic this. I'll do this. And I just watched. I did a lot of watching of what was successful, and I knew that if I was constantly hanging out with losers, that's what I would get. Which often meant that I was lonely because most people were losers, which is fine. I got to grow a relationship with Jesus at a younger age because of that, and that has really blessed me in a lot of different ways. The Bible is very clear about if you live righteously, God takes care of you. I mean, what was my what was my thought earlier? Because I had more that I was going to speak on that. Where did it go? Hang out. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay, so you have a couple options. You can hang out with people that make you better, or hang out with people that listen to you and they become better. If you're always hanging out with rough characters that you aren't able to influence them in a positive way, it's a waste of time. If you're hanging out with rough characters that are like watching you and learning from you and learning what righteousness is and striving to do it, and you hear them say little things like, hey, I decided to start watching a church online, or I decided to try out church, or I took the time to pray about this issue, and they start to like pick up these little traits that are common in your life. You're doing something there. Keep doing it. That's great. But if you're hanging out with those people and there's no fruit coming out of it, I would argue to stop pouring energy into them.
He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed.
Where's that found?
Proverbs 13:20.
Yeah. So it's like, there's nothing wrong with hanging out with losers and blessing them. And I'm just going to call them losers because that's the easiest way for me to describe it. Someone who's not living for God is a loser because they're clearly not winning.
Someone who's choosing not to live for God.
Yeah. So I have those two things. Either you're hanging out with rough people that you're actually influencing, or you're hanging out with people that are better than you and they're encouraging you to be better. Those are two places you should be. If you're hanging out with rough people that are just dragging you down, you got to move on.
The sun is blinding me on the mirror table. So it's moving your Bible.
So I love the way Proverbs puts it, because it's just a straight thought. It's like a condensed form where he like meditated on something for a while and brought it down and says, this is how it is. So anyway, Proverbs is incredible in that way.
As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend.
Where's that found?
Proverbs 27:17.
We had a old coworker that we called Lunchbox because he just randomly, well, because he always had his lunchbox with him. But sometimes I called him Fortune Cookie because he would always just say the most random like proverbs, and or you just like make up stuff and be like, all right, cool, dude, or all right, dude, cool, whatever. Just a random proverb in the middle of the day. It's like, where did that come from, Fortune Cookie?
Here.
I love that guy. 2 Chronicles chapter 10. This is Rehoboam's reign of folly. Rehoboam was one of the children of Solomon. So chapter 10, verse 6. Then King Rehoboam consulted with the elders who had served his father Solomon while he was still alive, saying, How do you counsel me to answer this people? And they spoke to him, saying, If you will be kind to this people and please them and speak good words to them, then they will be your servants forever. But he forsook the counsel of the elders, which they had given him, and consulted with the younger men who grew up with him and served him. So he said to them, What counsel do you give that we may answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, Lighten the yoke which your father put on us? And the young men who grew up with him spoke to him, saying, Thus you shall say to the people who spoke to you, saying, Your father made our yoke heavy, but you make it lighter for us. Thus you shall say to them, My little finger is thicker than my father's loins. I'm going to end there. I didn't know it was going to end on that word. This is just the version
bragging about his finger being bigger than his father's.
I mean, so he goes on to be terrible to the people that he's supposed to be serving.
I'm gonna make it make the yoke heavier than my father did.
Yeah.
And he
And
sucked.
yeah, he did. He was a loser because he chose to listen to losers, and that's what he became. And it didn't end well for him. There's a whole lot more to that story. I would encourage that you go find that in 2 Chronicles chapter 10. That is a story of why do I always read the most ridiculous stuff?
Because you have a gift that God wants to bring out.
So
You have a unique perspective.
his loins. Arr! So yeah, he's like he has a pride issue here to where he's going to control everybody and not let up any pressure and say, no, you're gonna serve me, I'm not serving you. And he was a rough ruler, and it was terrible. It doesn't work out, and that happened because of him taking bad advice. When we take the time to listen to good advice, we get good results. One of my favorite things to do is observe people that are successful and say, okay, what did you do to be successful? It seems like a pretty duh. And then you just do that same thing and oh, what do you know? It worked. You live righteously and you are blessed righteously. If you're nice to people, they like you. You laugh at someone's jokes and they like that you're laughing at their jokes. You remember somebody's name, they like that you remembered their name. You're a pleasant person, people like it. It's kind of a no-brainer, really. That's the thing about learning stuff. It only does you good if you put it into practice. Which is what a lot of my life has been. I took the time to observe all my brothers' strengths and weakness, and I learned, okay, don't do this, yes, do this. Don't do this, yes, do this. And where was it? Oh, yes. Okay, so as I read this story of him taking bad advice rather than listening to good advice, it reminded me of something. I don't remember what it reminded me of, but I wrote it down. So in Deuteronomy 32:35, it says, vengeance is mine and retribution is due. Time. Sorry, this has so many extra numbers on it. I have a hard time reading it. Lord, clarify my eyes, please. Vengeance is mine and retribution is due. In due time their foot will slip. For the day of their calamity is near, and the impending things are hastening upon them. Now, I wanted to come here and point that out because that's what hanging out with losers does. It brings you into a situation where you're now up against God. You're now up against God's vengeance. And part of the issue that this young man was dealing with is he was trying to take control. He was trying to be in power and claim that vengeance is his, whereas it's not. It's God's. His role is to submit to God and do what he's told, just like all of us. That was my nugget. I have a sneaky feeling I have a lot more to say. Did you have something that would spark up my thoughts? I guess I would encourage hanging out with good people. If you're around rough people that you're not encouraging, and really look for the fruit that they're producing. What are they producing? Are they trying to get better? That's a first start. Are they even trying to be better?
Well, there's that passage. I can't remember, but Paul is talking about... I was trying to find it, but I couldn't remember. He's talking about basically when you are hanging around people, especially when you're serving them, ministering to them, what they produce is evidence of your ministry.
Yeah, you were reading that in... where were you when you were reading that? Was that...
I don't remember. I've been all over the place lately.
I want to say... It wasn't Ephesians. I thought it was like Thessalonians or something. I don't remember that. It's so good, though.
It is good. I'm trying to find it.
When you are ministering to people and taking care of them and they go and do great things, and that what they produce reflects you and what you have poured into them. Man. So it can be so easy to get caught up in the don't do this lifestyle, to observe people's failures. Oh, that was one of the other things I was going to mention. I actually watched a friend go through a divorce, and I asked him, why did it fail? What can I do to not be you? I just straight up asked him because he was a factual person. He didn't mind that sort of question. It's not really a nice way to ask, but I knew that he would receive it well. And he actually gave me great advice. Don't work too much. If you're not at home, you have no relationship with your spouse. Like, we spend more time at work than we do at home, just with an 8-hour day. And that's not a great reality. And that's where I learned early on in construction, yeah, I could do great. Yeah, I could go off and have a ridiculous amount of money and work all this overtime. But for what? To lose my wife, to lose my children, to then go through a divorce and then lose all of it anyway? Like, I watched it time and time again of these men working so hard, and then their spouse is at home bored, so she starts spending money to entertain herself or to feel glamorous so she gets attention, and then he's all losing money, so he works more, and then it just stretches further. I know, it's terrible. And that's the thing, you can get caught up in this negativity of it all, and that's what I have chosen. Like, yes, observe the reality of what's happening this day and age. Relationships in marriage is not as good as it should be. And part of that is because we've focused so much on, I don't even know where I was going with that, but I want to go back to how to have success. Not just the don't do these things, but what do you do to have success? And what I have found to have success is to listen to people that are smarter than me. In a lot of cases, the adults that were older than me that I didn't actually want to listen to, like, they would tell me to do things I didn't want to do. Like, one of the wise financial decisions I learned was to not go buying a brand new car because I couldn't afford it. Like, yeah, I could afford the payments, quote unquote, but in the end, you get stuck with a vehicle that has a fraction of the value of what you spent on it. So you're spending a bunch of money into nothing that you don't get back. And that was just good advice that I received from somebody. And yeah, it wasn't advice I liked, but that was the reality of it. And learning to yeah, that's a lot of it, is let your pride go and listen to somebody whether you like it or not. You take the advice from listen to they spoke to him saying, if you will be kind to the people and please them and speak good words to them, they will be your servants forever. That sounds incredible. That sounds like great advice. Why wouldn't you do that? That seems like a no-brainer. Yeah. And honestly, success is a no-brainer. You listen to good advice and do it. And if you can't find good advice, you're not looking, because it's all right here. Just read through Proverbs. Oh, man. There's just so much in the Bible on how to be successful, on how to get along with people, and it really would solve pretty much everybody's problems if they would just spend some time to read the Word every day.
Yeah, I think it would.
Like,
well, not just reading, but actually
putting it into practice.
Application.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
I can read a whole 2 pages and then come out and be like, well, I did that, and not get a thing out of it because I was checked out the whole time. Thinking about something else,
because when you read like a fantasy or friction,
I don't read
fiction. I guess. What am I saying? So if you read Narnia, or what is that? Fiction. There it is.
Good job.
I was saying friction. So if you read a fiction book, there's no application to it. I mean, yeah, you can learn principles or like character traits. You can learn things from a fiction story, but you're not going to find the things that do this and you'll have this success as likely as if you just go read it straight from a book that's designed to transform your mind.
Yep.
And so you read a book like that for entertainment. You read a book like this to transform your life. So if you're going to read this, expect it to do something. Actually try to apply it to your life. Even in reading the Old Testament, and I'm preaching myself right now, read the Old Testament, apply the principles to your life, and walk in them. It doesn't do you any good to read something if you can't figure out a way to put it into practice. Like we've got to start learning these things and then doing them. Nothing? Didn't spark? Wow.
I worked hard today.
Yeah, you did. I'm normally the one just watching you chat. How long did I make it? That's the most I've spoken in a while, unless I'm just rambling on about something at work.
Let's not use our podcast to ramble about work.
Hey, you guys want to hear about doors?
Redemptive. The redemptive purpose.
Yeah, so what would the redemptive purpose be in all of this?
Indoors?
No.
I'm like, what?
No, not indoors. In what I'm speaking about. Did I? Yeah, I went on vengeance.
That if you have good friends, you can rest assured knowing that you're in good company. And it's easier to grow when you don't have to keep watching your back and watching what's being taken in. Because the eyes are the light. They are the window to the soul. And so that also goes for your other senses too. Like what you are consuming, that means listening to, watching, like the influences in your life is what's going to...
It's not even just relationships. Like it can be just the things you're doing on your phone.
Yeah, like when I scroll through my Facebook, I purposely click on the videos I don't like and say, show less of this. Because,
does that help? Does it
yeah,
actually
it
work?
does. Okay. So then I'm not doom scrolling, which I refuse to accept that because I'm not going to speak that over myself. Then when I am scrolling through, the times that I choose to sit, I get a whole bunch of like inspirational words of encouragement from people, or sometimes I get
cooking videos.
Funny cooking videos, which I just think are hilarious. We serve a God of fun. There is fun in him.
Yeah.
So be mindful, I guess, is the word of what you're putting into your mind. And that carries over into the people you're around. Because what they're putting into their minds is what's going to come out of their mouth, and that's what's going to go into you. So it's like this, we're pouring pitchers into each other. And you want to make sure that the pitcher you're pouring from came from here first, and not somewhere else.
Yeah. I think I ran out. Thanks for listening. Yeah, you good? Okay. Love y'all. Bye.